Who are you?
Your waiting is over.
This film is so stunning in a lot of ways, but I feel like visually it's just so gorgeous. Uberto, can you talk about creating this world and sort of capturing these shots, particularly the nature ones, with your cinematographer?
Hi, Taylor. Good to meet you. Well, we felt that it was very, very important to ground the story in reality. So not only at script stage, we decided to focus on people rather than monsters, gods, travels, but, you know, and a man coming home to his family and the difficulty of that, on the psychology of that, but to set it all in a world that was earthy, that was real. So real water, real woods, real sand, real rain, and with the cinematographer, that was the conversation. Really, that was what was the aim to. And when we decided on the design, what we wanted to do again was to have a language in the clothing, not costumes, but clothing and architecture that was not distracting. We didn't try to invent what, you know, Greece might have been in 1300 before the current era. We just found a language which is universal and contemporary too. You know, everybody's still wearing cloth everywhere in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and everybody's still building houses with stones. And there's nothing that is constructed. I told the designer and the costume designer, I don't want your work to be noticed. I want our people to face, our audiences to face on, to focus on faces, to focus on emotions, to focus on these people, on these real people. Of course, in a real world, and that's where the nature of Corfu, which is where we shot the film, you know, infused the story so much. I think it fed the performances, and it just fed the crew while we were working. We were absorbing our environment and channeling it into the camera, I think.
No, absolutely. I feel like that really shines through. And obviously it is this grand epic, but there is also this really intimate coming of age story for your character, Charlie. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about that, like this movie through this almost like coming of age lens.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, you know, all of these characters are coming of age in a way, I suppose, just at different times and different ages, but there is that internal development that's absolutely driving a tremendous amount of the story. And yeah, I mean, I think in a way I was just so fortunate that this script and this version of the text was so tightly composed in a way that for me, it just made everything, the logic there was always there, and it was always complete, and it never felt like any portion of it was missing or, oh, we needed to fill this out, or anything like that. It always just kind of was understood. And you know, I think when you're working with text like that, there's a huge feeling of relief in that. So as much as, of course, I could kind of draw comparisons or find ideas, it was more just knowing we had everything that we needed in that. And of course, as we got into it, Uberto would share little things and details would kind of color things differently, but I would say the core of it was just always intact from the very first time I read it. And so I think when you have something like that, it really is the ship that we were all on and just crossing this, to continue this terrible analogy, crossing this ocean of an experience together, so yeah.
I think it's a great analogy, and it's a great script, as you were saying. And I mean, Odysseus' story has been dramatized many times, but his later years aren't explored nearly as often. So I'm curious for you, Roberto, what drew you to looking at this specific part of his life and essentially tackling PTSD in 1300 BC? Because that's not something you see even in modern scripts that often. So to see it in this historical context is so fascinating to me.
Well, as we were saying before, my interest in making a film, in daring to enter into a dialogue with Homer, was to find something that meant something to me as a man, as an older man, as a father, as a husband. ex-husband, and so the focus was from the very beginning, script-wise, on the ending of the Odyssey, on the coming together of this family that had been wrenched apart by war, and on what war does to people. Of course, the people who go to fight it, but also the people who wait at home, and how those people have to deal with when the soldiers return. And I read a lot of interviews with Vietnam veterans and their wives about what it means to come back from war and how difficult it is to reintegrate into society, into a family, reconnect. And they were absolutely fascinating. And they really, really informed our writing of the script. And this is not just because we are clever and reading contemporary accounts of what it means to go to war, but it's because Homer allows you to do that. In Homer itself, Odysseus is a very messed up individual. He cries when he thinks about Troy. We have him cry when he thinks about Troy. He does not think of himself as a hero. We might remember him from our school days as a hero who went to Troy and came back, but in reality, Homer depicts a very conflicted, very suffering man. You know, a man of pain, a man hated, a man with guilt, the guilt of what he has done in war, the guilt of leaving his family unprotected, alone, the guilt of not bringing his companions home. So the complexity in Homer is there if you want to read it. And all we did is bring it out and infuse it, yes, with more recent reading. You know, the Confessions of a Vietnam vet, to me, is fundamental. And you mentioned PTSD, and yes, it is. It is a man with PTSD. It is a man who has to be helped, will be helped. And I hope that at the end of the film, you will feel that that journey, the real journey of return, only starts at the end, when he will find a way, we hope he will find a way, to come out of the experience and to put the war behind him. That's in the next movie we're going to make.
The sequel, we need it.
We need it.
Well, I could pick your brain about this all day, but unfortunately I do have to wrap. But it was such a pleasure getting to talk to you. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited for everyone to get to see this.
Thank you so much,
Taylor. Have
Lovely
a great
to
rest
meet
of your
you.
day.
Bye-bye.